Let's take you to one of the big stories we're tracking today. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris says she'll do everything in her power to unite the Democratic Party and unite the nation to defeat Donald Trump this November. She says she's honored to replace President Joe Biden as party nominee after the announcement that he would no longer seek re-election. SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease joins us now with the very latest. Sherwin, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris just spoke at an event at the White House where we just had crossed live to her, and we understand that that was just to announce the athletes that will be representing the country at the Paris Olympics. Any comments around the endorsement or Joe Biden's announcement yesterday?
Because it was a White House event and not a campaign event, Kamala Harris was, had to stick to a script for all intents and purposes. And so this wasn't an opportunity really to talk about the campaign. So what she did instead was to focus very much on praising President Joe Biden. She called him, let me just get my notes here. She says his accomplishments were unmatched in modern American history, that he had a very deep love for the country, and that she was very deeply grateful for his service to the nation. And, we've seen a number of accolades coming from the likes of the hierarchy in terms of leadership in the Democratic Party, including former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who said Biden is a patriotic American who has always put the country first. His legacy of vision, values, and leadership make him one of the most consequential presidents in American history. And so you saw the vice president, who of course was endorsed by the incumbent Joe Biden yesterday, given that earth-shattering announcement that he would no longer be seeking re-election this year, really dipping her hat to the legacy of Joe Biden, who has been in public service for more than 50 years, very long time indeed.
Mm-hmm. Has anyone emerged that could compete against Kamala Harris' nomination?
Not as yet. What we have seen is Kamala Harris assuring up support from all corners of the country, including potential rivals, right? Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, was seen as a potential rival. He's now endorsed Kamala Harris. Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, she has endorsed Kamala Harris. And we've seen that from a number of senators and members of Congress and governors around the country really lining up and backing Joe Biden's endorsement of Kamala Harris. We've also seen the endorsements from high-profile members of the Democratic Party, including the Clintons, Bill and Hillary Clinton, endorsing Kamala Harris. But we haven't heard an explicit endorsement from the likes of a former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, the former President Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of Democrats in the House of Representatives, Chuck Schumer, the leader of Democrats in the Senate. And I think once that levee breaks, if they come on board, then Kamala Harris would seem rather assured of becoming the presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party. But that is a process that needs to play itself out. Remember, Joe Biden was the presumptive nominee, having won all the delegates in terms of the primary process that played itself out. Over 14 million people voted for Joe Biden. How those delegates now shift their support from Biden to Kamala Harris remains to be seen. And that's why we imagine, outside of events at the White House, she's now in her office working the phones.
Now, we understand that Republicans have also called on Biden to resign from the presidency immediately. What are the prospects of that happening, given that he's still about 6 months of his first term to complete?
Well, let's take Joe Biden at his word, right, Fundo. He has said in that statement where he will no longer seek re-election, but he has every intention of completing his term. And remember, Joe Biden wanted to be the presumptive nominee. He wanted to be the nominee for president. He wanted to run to serve for another 4 years, and he's now relinquishing that. One finds it very hard to imagine that given his opposition even to that move, right, over the last 3 weeks, he indicated he was going to stay in this race, that he would now suddenly, sort of give up the whole bag of goodies, if you will. So Joe Biden has said he will continue to finish his term until January next year, and there's certainly no indication that anything different will happen as yet. Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House, yesterday put out a statement that if Joe Biden is not fit to run for president, he is also therefore not fit to serve as president, so that therefore he must resign office immediately. November 5th cannot arrive soon enough, but one doesn't imagine that Joe Biden is going to be taking his cues from the Republican Speaker of the House.
Now, Sherwin, theories abound as to what exactly could have led to this decision, because just like you say, last week at the NATO summit, he was very defiant. He came out and said he will not be quitting. He will see this through until November, and he's going to defeat Trump. What could have possibly changed?
The support from close allies, including Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, dissipated. The concern that donors, Mfundo, were expressing, donors were withholding their money, and when the money dries up in a presidential election campaign, there is certainly no pathway to victory. The poll numbers were indicating that Joe Biden was losing steam against rival and the Republican nominee, Donald Trump. Donald Trump was streaking ahead in the battleground states. Donald Trump survived an assassination, so that goodwill vote that one can attach to the sympathy vote, having survived such an experience, was favoring Donald Trump. So the numbers, the money was certainly moving in a different direction. Democrats were moving away. We don't even understand the depths of the conversations that we're having, that were happening behind the scenes, because only so many Democrats had sort of come out publicly to say that Joe Biden should step aside. But the numbers were certainly pointing in a certain direction, and key backers of this president were telling him behind closed doors that it certainly wasn't looking good. And the risk of losing both houses of Congress, let alone the White House, but to lose the House of Representatives and the Senate was really weighing on his decision, and that's why he came to the decision that he should step aside.
You're saying funds were going in a different direction now, but interestingly enough, just post that announcement that he'd be exiting the race, it seems funds now are flowing in the direction of Kamala Harris, because we understand that a lot of money has come away just after that announcement.
Yeah, fundraising has certainly ticked up for Kamala Harris. Look, 60+% of members of the Democratic Party wanted this decision. Whether it was Kamala Harris or not, they certainly wanted Biden to step aside, given that faltering and halting debate performance. But money seems to now be flowing again, but it's going to be an interesting thing to observe, right? Let's listen to what the Democratic Party chairman, Jamie Harrison, says. He says the work that we must do now, while unprecedented, Mfundo, is clear. In the coming days, the party will undertake a transparent and orderly process to move forward as a united Democratic Party with a candidate who can defeat Donald Trump this November. All those chips now need to fall in place. And then I think, donors will return back to the party in support of whomever the Democrats choose to run against Donald Trump this November.
Sherwin, as always, thank you very much for your reportage. That's SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease for us in the United States.